with the Alabama Supreme Court. Alabama Supreme Court, what is it, 3 days ago? 2 days ago, 3 days ago, ruled that embryos that were kept basically were the equivalent of children. Embryos were equivalent of children. And therefore, if you destroyed embryos, you could be, or a zygote, right? Zygotes, you could be accused of murder, killing of children. Frozen embryos are children, according to the Alabama Supreme Court, where God is cited and where the Chief Justice of the court, is a real religious conservative, all the way, 100%, no compromise. And indeed, so this happened, and all across kind of the Republican world, right, there were big cheers. People were celebrating this. This is great. Yeah, absolutely. Life is, human life is, it comes into being at conception. And of course, embryos are children. That's why you can't have abortion. Well, if the embryo happens to be outside the womb, it's still a child, and therefore you can't destroy it. And Republicans, for a while there, were celebrating this. The senator, for example, from Alabama was like, yeah, this is good. This is a recognition of all we've been talking about all along. Embryos are children. And finally, a court has recognized that. And Alabama, of course, is a state that has some of the most, or the most stringent abortion laws in the country. It's just Alabama has a law that basically says abortions are illegal at any stage of pregnancy. Abortions are illegal even in cases of rape, even in case of incest, even in cases where the woman's life is imperiled. So basically, zero tolerance for abortion in Alabama. And now zero tolerance for, destruction of embryos in Alabama. But this creates a problem. Fertility clinics typically fertilize a number of embryos in order to implant those embryos as part of when couples cannot conceive by themselves naturally. And as a consequence, whoa, somebody's calling me a liar. Why are they calling me a liar? What did I say? What did I say? And as a consequence, fertility treatments really problematic because they don't use all the embryos. Fertility clinics usually use some embryos and destroy the rest. Some women, or some embryos actually frozen and used later. With an IVF, a doctor extracts eggs from ovaries, fertilizes them with sperm outside the body, test tube babies, and then there's an embryo. And then it can be moved into the uterus. But now fertility clinics are going to shut down IVFs. Shut down IVF in Alabama. The number of clinics have already said they're not going to do these procedures anymore. And suddenly Republicans are like, wait a minute, no, we didn't mean it to have a detrimental effect on actual childbirths. We want children. Like, we're big on family. We want children. We want couples. More importantly, we don't want to lose the vote of couples who can't have babies. In a amicus brief to the court, the Medical Association of the State of Alabama warned that the ruling would make pursuing IVF more expensive or result in fertility clinics shutting down or moving out of state because of the increased risk of lawsuits. The justices shrugged this off, writing that it was up to the legislature to address that policy-focused argument, and it had a duty to provide legal protection to unborn life without exception. The Chief Justice, Tom Parker, quoted the Bible as he examined the sanctity of unborn life. Quote, "Human life cannot be wrongfully destroyed without incurring the wrath of a holy God who views the destruction of his image as an affront to himself. Even before birth, all human beings bear the image of God, and their lives cannot be destroyed without effacing his glory." I'm not even going to mention the issues of separation of church and state that this brings up, right? I mean, God. So IVF is in trouble now. The senator from Alabama, when he heard that IVF was in trouble, was like, we didn't mean it. That's not what we want. It's not clear how the legislature can solve this problem. The court is pretty clear. You cannot destroy unborn life. Now, this, of course, raises questions not just for IVF, but it also raises big questions for the abortion pill. The abortion pill, of course, only affects you, causes the woman to abort after conception. In other words, after the image of God has already been created. And then you are taking a pill to cause an abortion and thus killing the image of God. And therefore, you can see how that argument could be used to make the abortion pill illegal in Alabama, which is it is not yet, but we know that that's with the Supreme Court right now. The Supreme Court right now is going to be ruling about the abortion pill soon. I mean, when Roe versus Wade was struck down, a lot of people were saying, oh, well, no big deal. At the end of the day, the states will decide. And look, you know, there'll be some rational conclusion to all of this. It'll be decided by voters at a local level the way it should be. Don't worry, everything's fine. Everything's not fine. Everything's a disaster for many, many women, minorities, smallest minority in the world. Smallest minority is the individual. So individual women, their rights are being stripped from them. They're stripped from them in the inaccessibility to abortion. They're now stripped from them inability to use IVF. They're stripped from them in the inability to use certain forms of what is still called contraception, post-fertilization, if you will, contraception. Everything, in a sense, the worst case scenario coming out of Roe versus Wade, the Dobbs ruling, is playing out. This is truly horrific. And next, we know what's going to be next. Next, once they get rid of abortion completely, including the morning after pill, including all the kinds of morning after pills, all the kind of abortion pills, the next obvious step is to get rid of contraception. And that seems bizarre and far-fetched. That seems right out of the Iranian theocratic regime. But for many Americans today, that is the next required step. It's not legal up to 20 weeks in Alabama. It's not legal at all in Alabama. It's not even legal with medical exceptions. It's not legal in the cases of rape and in Alabama. It has a basically zero tolerance law in Alabama against abortion. And you can see why. If unborn children are children, then yeah. Yeah, it's easier to call me a liar. I get it. That's fine. All right, let's check this. You know, I could be wrong. I don't know all the abortion laws by heart. Let's check this out. An abortion will be permitted if an attending physician's license in the state of Alabama determines that an abortion is necessary in order to prevent a serious health risk to the unborn child's mother, except in the case of a medical emergency as defined herein. The physician's determination should be confirmed in writing by a second physician licensed in Alabama. The confirmation shall occur within 180 days after the abortion is completed and shall be prima facie evidence of a permitted abortion. All right, so my mistake. In the case, this is the only exception, right? It shall be unlawful for any person to intentionally perform or attempt to perform an abortion except as provided for by subsection B, which I just read to you. In other words, the only exception for abortion is if a woman's life is a serious health risk. Now, did you see the issue of health risk? First of all, don't call me a liar, Rochelle, or whoever you are, you bastard, right? You don't call people liars. I made a mistake. I didn't lie. I corrected the mistake. I expect an apology, not just a thank you, but an apology would be the appropriate thing when you call somebody a liar. A liar is not somebody who, yeah, I was lying. So somebody who says something wrong is always lying. God, the people. No, I'm not happy that you, as despicable person that you are not apologizing. All right. Notice that in the state of Texas, you remember the state of Texas? We talked about this. We talked about this a little while ago, a few months ago. The woman who said that if she did not have an abortion, the child would die and she would never be able to have kids again. That seems like serious health risk. And yet the Supreme Court of Texas denied her an abortion. So what is serious health risk is a very, very narrow, very, very narrow. All right. Anyway, Donald Trump was silent about this for days. And then finally today, responded by wanting to have his cake and eat it too. Basically urging the Alabama legislature to pass a law that makes it possible for couples to get IVF in Alabama without overturning what the Supreme Court of Alabama had ruled in terms of. In other words, Republicans now want to have it both ways because they realize the electoral damage that this is going to have. Now, what motivates this? Now, you could say what motivates this is a commitment to this idea that human life begins at conception and therefore, the embryo has embedded in it individual right, the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness as an embryo and therefore cannot be destroyed. But that's ridiculous. That is completely wrong. It's a complete fabrication. It's not what motivates this at all. And it's what motivates this is exactly what Ayn Rand claimed motivated the opposition to abortion. What motivates this is opposition or rejection of sex and pleasure. It is the idea that if you have sex, then, you should live with the consequences. If you have sex, it should be scary. If you have sex, we shouldn't use human ingenuity, the human mind, human ability to just have sex without negative repercussions. Negative, if you don't want to have a child, then pregnancy is negative. What really motivates this hatred of women, this hatred of abortion, this hatred of, this veneration of embryos, this veneration of zygotes, this veneration of cells, is ultimately a real hatred of sex and pleasure.